July 2, 1976. In an apartment courtyard on Friesenstrasse in West Germany, parents are frantically searching for 4-year-old Marion Ketter. She vanished while playing earlier that afternoon. Her mother knocks on every door, asking if anyone has seen the little blonde girl. One floor above the search, a resident named Oscar Miller notices something wrong. The hallway is filled with a thick, sweet, organic smell. He climbs the stairs to the communal toilet to investigate a severe blockage in the building's narrow pipes. Oscar's neighbor, a short, quiet man everyone calls Uncle Joachim, steps into the hallway and tells him not to use the bathroom. When Oscar asks what is clogging the pipes, Joachim Kroll states flatly that it is human remains. Minutes later, police breach Kroll's apartment. They find a pot simmering on the stove with potatoes, carrots, and something else. Inside the refrigerator, they discover wrapped portions of flesh labeled with dates, stacked neatly like Sunday leftovers. Kroll stands in the middle of his apartment. He doesn't panic or resist. His face is completely neutral. His hands are at his sides, and he treats the officer's arrival as a minor, everyday interruption. For 21 years, law enforcement across the region had been chasing shadows, convinced a highly organized predator was operating in their cities. Instead, they found an intellectually disabled man who cleaned toilets for a living. Joachim Kroll was born in 1933 into grinding poverty near the German-Polish border. He was the sixth of at least 8 children in a cramped home. Warmth was scarce. By the time he was 6, the country was at war, and the violence around them escalated rapidly. His father was drafted to the Eastern Front and captured by the Red Army, never returning. Following the war, millions of ethnic Germans were forced to flee west. Kroll, his mother, and 6 sisters were displaced, ending up crammed together in a tiny 2-room refugee apartment in the industrial Ruhr Valley. This diagram illustrates the McDonald's triad: childhood behaviors linked to violent tendencies. Psychologists found 2 matches in Kroll's background: chronic bedwetting deep into his youth, and early reports of mistreating farm animals. Dropping out of school at 15, Kroll found work as a farmhand. Here he watched a pig being slaughtered. The animal was stunned and hung upside down, its throat cut, the blood pouring out, revealing warm organs. Kroll later described this experience as an awakening. While others saw routine labor, he became fixated on the blood and the way a living thing was transformed into meat, a connection he would carry into his future crimes. He emerged from this environment profoundly broken. With an IQ tested later in life between 76 and 78, he lacked the capacity to process his traumas. But in a post-war society consumed by the sheer effort of survival, a slow, quiet boy slipping into dark compulsions went entirely unnoticed. Kroll turned the sprawling landscape of industrial Ruhr towns into his hunting ground. The region was a vast network of coal and steel centers, separated by forests and rivers, linked by a dense web of public transit. His method relied entirely on public transit. On his days off, he would buy a bus or train ticket to a neighboring town. Carrying a small knife in his plain jacket, he looked for anyone isolated: a child walking from school, a teenager at a bus stop, or a woman walking her dog. The Ruhr was divided into isolated jurisdictions. Police investigated each attack separately with no shared databases. Because they couldn't cross-reference data, identical crimes across borders were treated as unrelated. The invisible pattern allowed the body count to silently accumulate. The inability to connect the crimes caused a secondary wave of destruction. Local police, facing intense public pressure to solve brutal murders in their own backyards, focused entirely on neighborhood suspects. Through exhaustive, relentless interrogations in windowless rooms, local investigators managed to extract completely unreliable confessions from the most vulnerable people in their own communities. Innocent men bore the weight of these local investigations. Heinrich Ott took his own life in a holding cell after being wrongfully accused. Another, Walter Quicker, faced such severe public harassment and isolation after his arrest that he too committed suicide. The legal system demanded rapid, localized answers. By forcing innocent men into the role of the culprit, investigators provided the perfect smokescreen, allowing a highly mobile killer to safely ride the train home. Following his arrest in 1976, Kroll did not act like a man backed into a corner. He was cooperative, almost friendly, chatting with the guards and displaying a dull, compliant humor as he settled into custody. He admitted to at least 13 murders spanning 2 decades. During police reconstructions, he directed officers to remote riverbanks and forests across the Ruhr, providing exact details about weather conditions and hidden terrain that only the killer could know. His detailed accounts provided definitive proof of his guilt, but they also delivered a crushing blow to the community. They confirmed that Heinrich Ott, Walter Quicker, and several others who had served prison time or ended their own lives had been entirely innocent. At his trial, psychiatric experts evaluated his mental state. Despite his low intelligence and horrific childhood, they concluded he was not legally insane. He understood his actions were forbidden, he knew how to hide evidence, and he could navigate public transit to avoid detection. Yet Kroll harbored a bizarre, naive belief. He fully expected that the court would assign doctors to perform a simple medical procedure to remove his violent urges, after which he would be allowed to return to his apartment. There was no surgery. On April 8, 1982, he was found guilty and received 9 life sentences. He spent the rest of his life as a quiet, model prisoner in Rheinbach, dying of a heart attack in 1991 at the age of 58. The devastation he caused forced West Germany to overhaul its investigative methods, ultimately leading to interconnected police databases. The tragedy lay in the fact that it took 21 years to catch a killer hiding in plain sight, a completely ordinary man whose lack of exceptional qualities is exactly what made him so dangerous.